Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Maitland Explains. Today's hot topic is MEX Security. Today I'm going to show you how to secure your system, what really is an admin user, and various scenarios which catch out our users. Security allows you to tailor the system towards your users' needs. Imagine having a system where your contractors were raising purchase orders and your purchasing officers were deleting assets. And on top of that, you want a history behind each action a user does. Now, when I'm first explaining security to someone, the first question I'm usually asked is, how do I turn it on? Well, we'll start from the main menu. Go to your control files, then look at the top left of your screen. You'll see a button called Security Switches. You want to hit that, and you'll see 4 switches come up, with the first being Security System. If you flick that one on, your system is now on. Okay, so now that you've got security turned on, you're probably wondering, what do the rest of the switches do? Well, the second switch, Security Warnings, will present the user with a pop-up box explaining why they're locked out of the screen, with the alternative being a blank white screen with no information at all. The third switch, Security Auditing, is really useful for us here when your users have deleted a work order and you want to know who did it and what work order they deleted. Okay, so the last switch, Enforce Password Strength, will make sure each password is greater than 8 characters. It'll also make sure no common words are in the password, like password, QWERTY, or anything like that. But why create different users? Well, the bottom line is traceability and simplicity. The simpler you make a system, the easier it is to use and the less training a user requires. And on top of that, each action a user makes will have their name against it. Now that security is turned on, every time that you open MEX, you'll be prompted for a username and password. Remember, the default username and password is admin. But you probably want to create your own users now. So let's go back to the control files and look at the top left of the screen above Security Switches. You'll see Security Users. Here, you can create new users, you can modify existing ones, and you can even change passwords if users have forgotten them. So let's create a new user. Hit the New User button down the bottom left, and you'll see a bunch of fields come up. Now, the only 2 fields that are mandatory are first name and login name. But you can also set the user's password here, but I prefer to let the user decide for their own when they log in. A new user is created without any security groups applied to them. You can see all the security groups on the left-hand side and that current user's security groups on the right-hand side. Now, something that always gets people is, if a user doesn't have any security groups, this means they're an admin user. They have no restrictions whatsoever. Each security group only restricts the users. A security group cannot give back access. So if you've got 2 security groups applied to the same thing, the security group with the most restricted access will take effect. I want to stress that assigning a user to the admin group will restrict them in some way. It does not make that user an admin. I like to think of security groups as a set of restrictions that makes the person's life easier, not harder. If the user can only see what they need to see on the screen, it makes the whole workflow feel a lot smoother. You can use our predefined groups, or you can create your own security groups. So going back to the control files, Security Setup in the top left. Now you see another button in the bottom left called Security Groups. In here, you'll create your own group and then return to the Security Setup form. So now that we've created our own security group, we have to select it in the drop-down in the bottom left. Pick your security group there, and then we can head to the work order details using the grid on the left. Or what I prefer to do is actually navigate to the work order details, and then your tools, edit security to bring up the same form, but on the work order details already. The trick here is you can right-click any control on the form to bring up some security options. You'll notice the first option is Form. What this lets us do is set security for the entire form. So if I set the form to read only, when I open the work order details, every single control on that form will be read only. The next option you'll see is the actual internal name of the control. Setting this value will actually make that control read-only or whatever you set. The third option is mandatory. Now this will actually prompt the user to fill in the field before they exit out of the screen. You can actually preview the control like you're a user using MEX. Use the preview control button down the bottom left and it'll behave exactly how a user would see it. You really have to think about how the user is going to use MEX. Remember, you want to make their life easier, not harder. Even sit down with them and see how they use MEX and see how other users in their position use MEX as well. Work together to create a better experience. Just dive into security and start using it. It's the best way to learn. I'm Maitland, your host, and this is Maitland Explains. You've been great.